everyone, and welcome to another awesome sauce episode of the Atheist Experience. I'm your host, Russell Glasser, and with me today is Tracie Harris.
Howdy.
How are you doing?
Good.
Today is April 10th, 2011, and we are a live call-in public access atheist television show based in Austin, Texas, dedicated to promoting positive atheism and the separation of church and state. We are also available to an international audience through our live stream at ustream.tv. Check out the website for more details about the show and our parent organization, www.atheist-community.org. That's the Atheist Community of Austin. You can also provide feedback by visiting the unofficial show blog, atheistexperience.blogspot.com, or email us at tv@atheist-community.org. If you enjoy the show today and you are located in the Austin area, please come join us for dinner after the show, beginning around 6 at El Arroyo. That is at 1624 West 5th Street here in Austin. Almost got that shorter intro down.
Did good.
Thank you. So you sort of thought you might bring some stuff in to talk about.
Oh,
but
I brought some very casual things
Okay.
in, and then you showed me some news clips, and I feel like those should take a little bit of precedence.
All right.
So,
So
totally.
like I was saying, there was no nonprofits yesterday. There should be one next week, as far as I know.
Oh, one public service announcement real
Yes?
quick. Pay your internet bill. Very important.
Oh,
Long
you
story.
speak from experience,
Yeah.
huh?
Well, let's just say it's a long story, but
Sorry to hear it.
That's cool.
Anyway, so we've got some news backed up that didn't get aired out on the nonprofits yesterday. So here are just a couple of quickies. In Delaware, authorities in Delaware County say that a 70-year-old man was stoned to death with a rock stuffed in a sock by a younger friend who alleged that the victim made unwanted sexual advances. According to the criminal complaint, 28-year-old John Thomas of Lansdowne has told police he killed 70-year-old Murray Seidman because the Old Testament refers to stoning homosexuals. What century are we living in again?
yeah, I guess my first thing is, if I'm ever stoned to death by somebody I know, please don't call them a friend in the article. Like, that would be my first complaint. They pretty much are not a friend of mine at that point.
Yeah, not
so-
anymore, right?
Yeah, that's just insane. I mean, I don't even, what do you even say to that other than, yeah, he's
I don't
right,
know.
it's
I'm
in his
sure there are
Bible,
some
but it's crazy.
technicalities in the Old Testament that we could get you on. I mean, call you a witch or something. But yeah, this really isn't funny, and I have a bad habit of making light of news like this that is
No,
just
it's not funny at
so
all.
crazy, though.
It is crazy, and it's a crazy, I don't even know how, what do you even say?
Right. What do you say? Meanwhile, equally sort of news is coming from Tennessee, where the House, the House voted 70-23 today for a bill backers say shields teachers from being disciplined if they discuss alternatives to evolution and global warming theories with students. Irony, of course, in that Tennessee is where the famous Scopes trial happened. The debate raged over the scientific method, intellectual bullies, hairspray, and Inherit the Wind, a 1960 movie about the 1925 Scopes trial in Dayton, Tennessee. Great movie, by the way, one of my all-time favorites. Representative Bill Dunn, a Republican from Knoxville, said the bill's intent is to promote critical thinking in science classrooms. Critics contend it's a shield to allow the teaching of evolution alternatives, such as intelligent design and creationism. Superficially, these kind of arguments about, promoting critical thinking always kind of sound good, except that, and then you have whole movies by incredibly slow talker Ben Stein trying to say that there's some kind of scientific conspiracy to chase intelligent design out of schools. But the thing is, teachers and school boards don't get to decide what actual science is. It goes through a scientific process. It gets vetted. There's a difference between things that are established, accepted science and things that are not. And presenting the kind of alternatives to actual established scientific theories like what Tennessee school teachers might want to say under this new law. They're not science. And you're making crap up, and you're saying them as an authority figure. So that's the problem with that.
Yeah, I think anybody that's still locked into the idea of intelligent design as something valid should probably, you can go to YouTube, and Nova has a really good series called Intelligent Design on Trial that I recommend if you're a student that's in this situation, if you've got this going on, if somebody's promoting intelligent design to you and you're not sure. It's basically, it was a political marketing ploy by the Discovery Institute, and you know, the reason that it lost in Dover is because there's nothing credible behind it. And if you want to see why it lost, and see, you know, transcripts of the trial are available online as well. But I think Nova did a really good job, and the full series is available on YouTube. And I recommend anybody watch it if you're interested at all in like the intelligent design, like the history of it, the background, and why it ultimately failed in the Dover trial.
I just checked the caller list, and I'm very excited to say that we have back an old standby caller. It's Mark from the Stone Church in Austin.
Okay.
Mark, wait a minute. Welcome back
this
to
is Mark.
Yeah,
Hi,
welcome
Mark.
back to the show. How are you?
Hi. Last time I called, I was a bit nervous when I talked to Matt and Jeff.
Yeah, you
They
talked to me the
actually-
time before that too.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm sorry about that.
It's
You
okay.
have to understand that my church is fundamentalist, so
Yeah.
we have we have a very strict opinion, and I just it's sometimes nervous when you talk to someone. You see, it's not normal for us to talk about things like this.
Well, I understand it must be difficult because, I mean, when you're in a group of people who sort of all agree on stuff, it can be kind of jarring to have some very different opinions being expressed on the air. It's probably
Right. Have you ever been to our church before?
No, I haven't, but, you know, I'm not saying I wouldn't be willing to go sometime.
Right. Well, if you want to understand what we believe, just go to austinstone.org/resources/sermons, and there are MP3s you can listen to.
I'm pretty sure I actually already listened to one, but I don't remember which one it was.
Okay, well, I think the most important sermon for you to listen to is the sermon on hell, because we believe in a literal hell. It's not a symbolic separation from God. It's a literal place.
Okay, and that's important to us so that we could understand that that's what you believe?
So that we could understand that when the kids at our church who have become fans of your show get caught watching it, there's the parents, they all got together. They were really worried because they believe if their kids watch your show, agree with you, they will literally burn.
Well,
Forever.
maybe the parents should just not believe that so much.
They're worried about their kids, and
Wait a minute. Can I ask you a question?
yeah.
Would you worship somebody that was going to burn your child to death?
Well, that is. We also believe in heaven.
Right, I understand. So if somebody said, you know, there's a chance that, but if I don't, you know, if your kid doesn't believe in me and doesn't believe that I will burn him to death, I'm going to douse him with gasoline and put a match to him. Is that somebody you would love and worship?
That is what the Bible says.
I agree. Well,
It
I
says
agree
that-
with that's
it
your
says that-
interpretation.
It says that at the end of the age, God will round up the non-believers like weeds, like a farmer rounds up after the harvest, and burn them.
And you believe this, I understand, but what I'm saying is, why would you worship a God that would be so hideous?
We believe that it's not shocking
Actually, it kind of is. I mean, you're saying that this God, you're afraid that this God will burn your children, for all eternity, torture them, and you're saying that you don't want your children to question that, or because if it's really true, they need to believe and worship this God like you believe and worship this God, that you're saying your concern is that this God may torture your kids forever. And I'm saying, why would you worship a God that you think would torture your children forever?
We think that we deserve it for what we've done to God. That's what I mean. It's not shocking if you consider that we spit on God and trampled on His holiness. Okay. That He would do that. Actually, what one of our preachers, Matt Carter, said is it's shocking that He would even give us the chance to go to heaven.
So if I don't believe in, if somebody doesn't, if somebody spits on me, then I can douse them with gasoline and put a match to them, and you think that's perfectly reasonable?
Well, actually, God is an infinite authority. So if someone were to spit on you, that would be like, our preacher said, like a drop of, like a raindrop in the Pacific Ocean next to what God would do.
So let me get this straight, though. You're saying that you actually teach your children then that they deserve to be tortured forever, right? Am I understanding that?
This wouldn't be like you offended a human. This would be like the punishment would be infinite because God's authority is infinite. It's not like if I spit on you and you tortured me. This would be like he said that the comparison between your punishment and God's punishment would be like a comparison between a raindrop and the Pacific Ocean.
Okay, well, can I burn, just your hand, then? Can I, douse your hand in gasoline and burn it because I'm not God? I guess it's disturbing to me that you have a doctrine that teaches you that people deserve to be tortured forever, and that you're willing to teach your children that, and also that
only if they reject God.
It doesn't matter. Why in the world would not believing in something require that a person should be tortured forever, and why would you think that's reasonable? And to top it all off, unless you have some evidence that this God even exists, why would you believe any of this?
Well, hang on, Mark. Let me try to do a little bridge building, because that's what we do here on the Atheist Experience. Last time you called, I remember that you asked Matt what he would think if he were still a Christian. And he gave you a pretty good sort of synopsis of what he would think, and you thought that he understood it pretty well. Am I right? You remember that?
Let me add that my church is fundamentalist. Way more fundamentalist than his church.
Okay, but he said, I'd be concerned that our kids, would be burned forever for becoming apostates, and you said, yeah, that's pretty close to what we think. So we understand where you're coming from, right? Sort of?
I think you would understand if you were to listen to the sermons, come to the church.
But my question to you is, do you understand where we're coming from? I mean, do you understand that from our point of view, we don't believe what you believe? We haven't been convinced that God is real and that the Bible is absolute truth. And I mean, you get that, right? I mean, you're coming at us telling us that you're afraid that your kids are going to be burned forever, and Tracie is kind of humoring you here. But really, you understand that the reason we're not taking this more seriously is because we just haven't seen any good reason to think that's true. You get that?
Right. I know I'm not as charismatic as the preachers at my church, but if you listen to
it's not
the
about
MP3s
charisma.
I referenced, you will get a good idea.
Yeah,
of where I'm coming from.
It's not about charisma, really. I mean, the problem is that if you're gonna rest things on people with charisma, I hate to invoke a cliche, but Hitler had charisma. He convinced a lot of people to believe a lot of horrible things about Jews, but you and I know that the things that he was saying weren't right, right?
Yeah.
So,
have you listened to sermons before?
Oh, lots of them. I used to listen to, KIXL in the car all the time.
Sermons about hell?
Sure. And so I'm telling you,
So you
I
know
understand.
what we believe, and you know that we find you repulsive. Because
I know.
you are leading our kids to...
Truth.
Well, no, you say that we're leading your kids to hell, but we think, and apparently a lot of the kids in your church also think, that this stuff really is kind of made up, that you don't have a good reason to believe it. You see where they're coming from? I mean, they're really, their parents are probably coming down on them hard, grounding them, threatening them with the most horrible punishments.
Instead of giving them some evidence for why
saying,
we're wrong.
Right.
And the other thing, I mean, just to give you some background, I'm ex-Church of Christ, so I understand hell completely. We had literal
I'm not.
hell.
I mean, I was born an atheist.
And I don't believe it anymore. And when somebody says to me that they're not concerned about demonstrating their God is real, but they're willing to still go forward and teach, despite the fact that they can't make a demonstration that any of it's real, that they're going to go ahead and teach their children that they're deserving of eternal torture, and that this is not a problem. I have a problem with what you're teaching your kids, frankly. I think that it's damaging. And I think that it's a horrible thing for a parent to tell their children, I think you deserve eternal torture, especially if they can't really demonstrate that there's any reality behind that claim.
There is a logical argument. Our preacher told us, he told us the logical argument. If you offend your parents, they might ground you or spank you.
Yeah, but again, I'm still not sure if you're getting this.
If you offend the Supreme Court, they might lock you up. And if you offend God, His authority is even bigger, so the punishment is bigger.
Okay, I don't believe
Right.
your God is real. Okay, so I think you are basically making your children afraid of the monster under the bed and telling them that there's something to fear there when there is nothing there. And the fact that you believe there's something there but can't demonstrate it doesn't help your case.
How would I demonstrate to you? You have to pray, you have to read the Bible.
No. If something is real, if this mug is real, you don't have to pray to know that it's real. When something is real, and when you want to demonstrate that it's part of existent reality, you make a demonstration of the existence of the thing. That's how you tell the difference between things that exist and things that don't. Where is your demonstration that this God manifests in some way that is demonstrable and differentiable, that can be differentiated from something that's not God?
I don't understand your question.
Okay, this mug is this mug. It's
yeah.
not something else, right? Here's the mug. And if you wanted, for example, to demonstrate air, like some people will say you can't see air, but I can blow up a balloon and show you, hey, you can see that it expands, that I'm putting something into it, even if you can't see it. You can make a demonstration of a thing that exists. If something doesn't manifest in some way that you can demonstrate, how do you tell the difference between that thing that doesn't manifest in some way that you can demonstrate and a thing that doesn't exist?
Well, Mark, I mean, let me ask you, you don't need faith to determine that your mom exists, right? I
No.
mean, you don't have to pray to your mom or hope for a special sign, because you can actually go and hang out with her. She can, you can have photographic history of her. You can come face to face with her. When she talks to you, she doesn't appear as a vague feeling in your head or some sort of result after you pray, or we would say talk to yourself. You go to your mom and you say hi, and she says hi back, and everyone can see her, and everyone sees the same thing.
A lot of people can see God. Everyone at my church can see God.
But they don't seem to see the same thing, because there are 300,000 different denominations, or was it 30,000 denominations of Christianity alone, and they all seem to think, you were very careful to specify that your church is fundamentalist, because you want to distinguish yourself from those other non-fundamentalist churches who obviously think completely different things about God, right?
We have, let me just explain something to you quickly. We have an affirmation of faith and values.
So you agree
is,
to...
Wait, let's see.
Right.
Go ahead.
The Bible is the Word of God.
Mm-hmm.
There is one true and living God who exists in three persons, God the Father, Jesus Christ, and the Holy Spirit.
Right.
God created all things for His glory. Men and women were created in the image of God. God alone is the architect and finisher of our salvation. The Holy Spirit gives gifts to his children. The church consists of all who have trusted the Lord Jesus Christ for their eternal salvation. Heaven and hell are real places. Jesus Christ will one day return to establish his kingdom. Everyone in my church believes that.
So it sounds like you have to go to a lot of work to have people recite all this stuff to make sure that they're on the same
We
page.
have sermons every Sunday. We just had one today.
Right, so you have one guy telling everybody what to believe, and sure enough, they all agree. I don't need sermons to tell me that my mom exists.
The other question is, while it's fine, we do usually ask people, what do you believe and why? And you're very good at explaining what you believe, and yet I have no understanding yet, even, as long as we've been on the call, I have yet understanding why you believe it. None whatsoever. Why do you believe these things that you believe? What makes you think they're true?
When you were Christian, why did you believe it?
Because I was indoctrinated to believe it.
Because people said sermons that said it was real and made you sign statements of faith and
it was
told
the same
you to,
reason
to
that
pray to
children
stuff.
believe in Santa Claus. The only difference was that I was engulfed in a whole society and my parents really believed it. So that what happened was I was surrounded by people that at no point in my childhood said, okay, we're about to tell you now Santa's not real. They don't do that with Jesus with you or with this doctrine with you. And so what happens is you end up embroiled in a culture of adults who believe this stuff because they've never thought about it and never questioned it. And the fact that you keep giving us what you believe, which is fine, we're interested in what you believe, but you seem to not provide why you believe it. What makes you believe that this is actually true?
I'll tell you that my church would hate you
That's
if
fine.
you were to compare God to Bigfoot or Santa Claus.
I don't
course
care.
they would.
I don't care if they would hate me. I don't care at all.
That's one reason why I haven't gone to your church.
It doesn't matter to me, though, how they would feel about me. What I'm wondering is why they believe that what they believe is true. I don't care what they feel about me. I don't care what their beliefs are at this point, because we've heard plenty of what they believe, but I have not heard one bit about how they justify it as true.
It's not science. It's not experiments.
Right?
But
Things like
Got
that.
what is the justification for believing that this is true?
Over something else. I mean, what would you say to a Jehovah's Witness or something who thought that you were completely wrong?
Well, we don't usually talk to Jehovah's Witnesses.
Well, I mean, maybe that's your problem. Maybe you're so worried that that you're going to be led down a path of lies
And
that you haven't stopped to consider that other people might have valuable input.
I have a question, just a real quick, and this is just sort of a more interesting thing from my perspective. You said before that you don't usually talk about these things with people. I think you said that early on in the call. And then you just said you don't talk to Jehovah's Witnesses. I was raised in a very fundamentalist church, and one of the things we were very big on was saving unbelievers, especially people we thought who were in error. I mean, I was preaching all the time everywhere I went. Anybody I thought was wrong, I would engage them. And you seem to be telling me that that's not your policy. And yet the Bible indicates, well, the Bible indicates that you should be seeking and saving the lost.
We send people to Africa. We send people all over the world. We fly them. We fund them, we pray for them, we equip them, that means teach them the message.
But you personally would not engage a Jehovah's Witness even though you think they're going to go to hell if you don't save them. Is that correct?
We do global missions.
But if a Jehovah's Witness came to your door, you would not engage them? You would let them run off and just burn in hell, and according to your doctrine. And that wouldn't bother you at all?
We try, but what I mean is, at my church, we all have the same beliefs.
Sure. That's why you're a denomination or a non-denominational group.
So we don't do this sort of thing very much. We don't usually have debates at my church.
Not within the church, I understand, but it seems like
you would try.
I mean, when I was a fundamentalist Christian, I was proselytizing as much as I could to anybody that would listen.
I have to throw out Matt's favorite verse because he would want to
1
if
Peter
he was
3:15,
here.
I'm sure.
1 Peter 3:15 says, "In your hearts acknowledge Christ as the Holy Lord. Always be prepared to give an answer to everyone who asks you to give the reason for the hope that you have." So, I mean, it seems to me that if you wanted to follow the Bible religiously, so to speak, you would want to go out and engage people and tell them the reasons that you think.
We do that a lot. What I mean is, I fund these things. I don't actually do them.
Can I ask
I'm not
you-
a saint. I'm not perfect, and I don't always have the confidence to preach, to convert people myself. But the church funds it, so I pay for this.
So he sees this as sort of like a group command.
Can I ask you, what is your role in the church? I mean, I've actually been personally curious because you've called 3 times now, and I'm not sure if you're like like in a leadership position or if you're sort of a one of these other.
No,
member.
I'm just a member of the church. I'm not
Okay.
a
That's
preacher
fine.
or.
What's your
an elder.
relation? What's your relation to these kids who are becoming fans, to your chagrin? How
My
well do you
friend's
know them?
kids.
Your friends' kids.
He's a member in the church, and this is the church's children.
Have you talked to the kids yourself and see what they say? I mean,
Well, they watch it on YouTube.
okay.
Okay, they're watching
the
clips.
videos. Someone sent them the videos on YouTube, and they watched them.
Have they seen the other videos where you called?
Yeah, they're watching right now.
Oh,
Okay,
hi
well,
kids.
that's good. Yeah, hey, shout out.
They always tell me, they say, and sometimes they don't. Sometimes they don't. When we talk to them, they're how do I say this? They're really proud of Matt. They think Matt will answer the question.
Well,
so
that
maybe they don't. We ask them about evolution. They say, "Well, ask Matt. He'll tell you." Call in, ask Matt. He'll tell you. Or they show us a video when Matt tells them. But we want. So they just use Matt. They don't think for themselves.
For the record, since I'm in a position now to give a message to those kids, I think that you should actually go and study the science and not rely on an authority figure.
Absolutely, I agree.
Because you should study the scientific evidence and figure it out for yourself. And you should seriously consider the sermons coming out of your church. And figure out, if you think they don't make sense, maybe you should engage Mark in a conversation and tell him what you think of them, not what Matt thinks of them.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And Mark, let me just say that on this, I think Russell's right on. And if this is your concern, I would agree with you. I don't think that the kids, even though children I do think require leadership, I would never want a child to be replacing blind faith in one thing for blind faith in another.
Especially not Matt.
So I don't think that anybody should be watching our show and just simply believing everything that comes out of Matt's mouth or any one of the co-hosts or anybody on this program. My goal, and I've told people this a lot, they'll say something about why do you want people to follow you? And I say I don't ever want anyone to follow me. That's not my goal. I want them to think for themselves and to figure this out. That's definitely the goal. And so on that, I think we're all 3 agreed.
Yeah, and don't believe what I say.
I don't think that they should be punished so harshly. I think they should be allowed to watch the videos, but other parents are pretty strict, and they grounded their kids and don't let their kids go on the internet to watch these videos because they're scared. They think Jesus should be their hero, not Matt.
Well, if I can offer some constructive criticism as a parent, I think that is probably, if they're really worried about their kids coming back to their side, that's probably the worst thing they could do. I'm not going to offer suggestions about how they can come back to Christianity because obviously I don't care. But I think that if I treated my kid that way, if I said, you may not watch this, you may not go on the internet, you may not listen to these atheists, the first reaction a teenager would have is, what are they hiding?
Well, some churches don't even let their kids read Harry Potter.
Yeah, and I think that's
silly.
equally as absurd.
I think that's too strict.
Right?
I think that
I agree.
we might agree, Matt. Since Mark, since you're saying that you're not sure that they shouldn't be allowed to watch the program, I always think that a better alternative, especially if the parents have good reasons for what they believe, it seems like this would be an opportunity for them to allow the children to watch the program, perhaps watch it with them, and then explain to the kids where the reasoning is incorrect or where the evidence is, pointing somewhere different than where someone here might be saying it. And so they could actually engage their children in a conversation, explain why they're right and why this program is incorrect, and that way rebut the show there with the children. And it almost makes me wonder and I understand this isn't all the parents in your congregation, it's just some of them, but it makes me wonder if those parents might not have raised children by modeling just blind faith and following without questioning, because it seems like the kids definitely have that attitude according to what you're describing. And it sounds like if the parents had good reasons for what they believed, they wouldn't be threatened by someone telling their kids something incorrect, because then they would be able to point out the errors in what's being said and demonstrate to the children that in fact what they're saying that as the parent is correct.
You're right, but you're naive because they'll never watch the videos with the kid.
Well, then it sounds
Oh,
to me
no,
like
I
the
agree
people
with
you
you
should
that they
be talking
won't.
to are the parents and not the kids or us.
Yeah, I
Maybe-
agree with you that they won't. I just think that's bad parental policy, and it makes me wonder if the parents themselves aren't responsible for their children's attitude of just believing whatever someone says, because it sounds like these parents themselves don't have good reasons for what they believe, or they'd be able to offer that to their kids and not be threatened by someone telling their children something different.
Maybe you should convince the pastors in your church to do some sermons about effective parenting strategies and engaging with what your kids are involved with
That's a good
instead
idea.
of burying their heads in the sand.
Yeah, I guess you went to church, so you know that it's not a debate society.
Correct. But you also understand, I understand that it's not a debate society for the parents, but when you're raising the children and they're trying to make determinations, there definitely has to be discussion. I mean, those children are not members yet, I'm assuming, or some of them might be wavering. It seems like at the point that you have young people who are making decisions about whether or not to join the church and become a member, that it would require some discussion at that point with the children. I mean, I understand that the adult members who have joined are all in agreement, but clearly the kids who are being raised are being encouraged to join, but many of them probably have not yet.
Well, you see, my church believes that if your kids leave the church, that's really bad.
Well, no, I understand what you believe on that. I do get it. But what I'm saying is that just means to me, when you said the church group itself is not a debate society, believe me, I understand that the preacher's not going to get up there and give a sermon to convince people a God exists, because everybody at your church already accepts that. But
They would sooner disown their kids, kick them out of the house, than sit and watch the Atheist Experience.
It
with
seems
them.
to me that that's what's probably going to wind up happening.
yeah,
and,
I think
and
those
nobody's
children
going to benefit.
going to have the worst time of it.
I wonder, how come none of these kids have called up yet?
Some of them have.
Yeah, they might have.
Have they? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, if you
I don't
guys
know
are
why
out in
they
the
haven't
audience,
emailed.
if you guys are out in the audience, you should call and let us know that you're a member of Mark's church, so that we can get your perspective
Well,
on this too.
except I just want to put a word in. Don't do that if you think you're going to suffer any kind of parental repercussions.
Yeah,
I mean,
sure.
after
I
what
mean,
Mark
if
just
your
said about some
parents are
parents
gonna
might rather disown
beat
you,
on you
I
or
don't want you
something.
calling up and having your voice recognized and get you into trouble.
Right.
So don't call unless you think that it's okay, with your parents, or that it's not going to cause a problem for you.
Yeah, but I mean, I'd welcome any other members of your church, as well as you, to call in any time, including the parents who hate us and think we're disgusting, including the pastors who you say are much more persuasive than you, and including the kids who enjoy watching us. We'd like to hear from as many perspectives as we can.
Yeah, anyone
Yeah,
should feel free.
they wouldn't call because they'd worry, but they'd email probably, so it was just private.
Well, if you
So there
email
was
me,
no way their parents could find out.
if you email, also let us know you're a member of Mark's church. All right, I think we've taken over half the show, and you're welcome to call back another week, Mark. And
Thank
as
you.
always, enjoyed the conversation.
Thanks very much, Mark.
Okay, God bless you.
Thanks.
Thank you for thinking that will do something.
It's intended as a nice thing.
What?
It's intended
Yes,
nicely.
I know. Okay, James in Long Beach, California. You've been holding very patiently. What's up?
Oh, hi, how are you?
Fine, thanks.
I had a few questions. The first one is concerning, like, biological or genetic mutations that would add information to DNA for evolution. I mean, I've looked online and I've watched different documentaries, and many of them say that the mutations that do occur usually end up subtracting information, or it's fatal, and the disease or whatever it is that it's alive will die off.
James, we're having a hard time understanding you, but I think the gist of your question, the screener says you're new to evolution and you want help understanding transitional forms. And I heard you say that mutations can't, or you've heard that mutations can't add genetic information, only make things worse. Have I got that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll take that off the air. Thanks for calling.
Because of the phone trouble, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, it sounded kind of like the volume was going up and down, up and down.
Yeah,
It was a very
might have been
strange
bad
connection.
cell phone or something.
But go ahead.
Shall I?
Yeah,
Okay.
take it.
Genetic information is encoded in the form of basically the chemicals that make up DNA. There are 4 kinds of chemicals whose names I can never remember or pronounce, but they start with A, C, G, and T. And so basically, if you read the genetic code, it's all like, a string of sort of gibberish words. But just like letters, when you put them together on a page, mean something to you because you understand English. The sequence of genetic components that make up DNA do something when they come together and make a life form. Mutations are happening all the time, and a mutation isn't like X-Men. It isn't like you magically get the power to, regenerate your skin when your claws pop out, or touch somebody and drain their life essence, because if that were the case, then usually it would be the case that genetic mutations would turn somebody into a horrible, disfigured monster, just like the creationists say. But what really happens is that all the time, little tiny mutations are accumulating. Like little tiny mutations, like instead of a G in one spot, you get an A. Because the copying sequence isn't perfect. And so modifications are happening all the time to the gene sequence. And sometimes these mutations actually have the effect of adding information. Like for instance, you could have a sequence of information that says ACGT-TAG. And then some mutation comes along that like doubles up that same molecule. So now you have ACGT-AGT, ACGT-AGT twice. So then you've got an extra gene sequence, and then you have another mutation come along which garbles around the second one, and bam, you've got new stuff in the gene that is in there. That is what information theorists understand as information. More new, unique sequences that weren't there before. That's new information. Now, regarding the question of how these could be beneficial, the answer is that, again, if you had sort of a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle kind of situation where these giant mutations made huge changes, then the creationists would be right, and that usually would be harmful. But what's really happening all the time is that there's little tweaks going on in the gene sequence, which are making minor, subtle changes. And so think of it kind of like focusing a telescope. If you turn the big knob and you just, twist it really hard, it's probably going to go way out of focus. But if it's almost in focus and you twiddle the little knob just a little bit, you're able, by little stepwise improvements, to get to a more focused telescope. And that's what happens in evolution, except that there is no predefined goal like focusing the telescope. There's just how well does this thing survive in the end. And if the survival rate is better thanks to the little twiddle, then it's going to pass on its genes more because it doesn't die as much. You have anything to add?
I would just add that there's it's kind of dated, but there's a really good presentation by Richard Dawkins called Growing Up in the Universe that's online. It's in a lot of different parts, and I can't recall if he goes into the genetic aspect of it, but it's a really great, there's a lot of even children in the audience, but don't get me wrong, even though it's done at a level that even a child can understand, it's still very interesting. He uses a lot of really fun models, and it is a good lot of information. It's on YouTube, Growing Up in the Universe, Richard Dawkins, where he explains sort of a step-by-step how evolution occurs and how it works and ways to think about it and misconceptions about it. And he uses like a few things that you're describing, like a mount improbable and like a lock mechanism that he actually has a model for, that he shows how, unlocking a complex lock with a single try would be extremely hard. But if you have locking mechanisms that, allow you to mess with it to where you get it right here and it pulls out a little bit, and then you get it right on the next code and it pulls out a little bit. And he's saying, you have to look at these things a particular way, and a lot of people have the wrong idea about how they actually work. And that's just kind of a good resource. But if you have do you have a resource on like the actual genetic aspect? Because that seems to be what he's asking.
I don't have one off the top of my head. I would just browse around talkorigins.org and check that out, because they have everything. And then as for your question about transitional forms, people don't understand evolution very well, and when they talk about transitional forms, they kind of imagine, like Ray Comfort talking about a crocoduck, like something that is exactly halfway between one modern species and another modern species. The thing is, I don't know, read a primer on evolution, because basically what it is that every living thing is a cousin. Obviously, they're not a direct ancestor or a direct descendant I mean, some of them are parents. Yeah. But, every living thing is alive today and is descended in sort of a branching structure from things that existed a long time ago. And the way that scientists determine how closely related different things are is that they can compare the genetic sequences and see which ones are closer to which other ones and how, and then figure out exactly at what point they branched. And then the fossil record sort of backs that up and corroborates it, because you can find ancestors that resemble, like, you can find ancestors of horses that are basically teeny horses.
Right. They had a really good show on Cats 101 on Animal Planet, and they were showing like a specific breed called the Serengeti, and they showed like how she started with a particular pair of cats, and then she had these two other breeds of cats that she incorporated, and it just showed like the entire litters like on a chart, and then went down into why she selected for certain ones, and then it went down and selected into other ones until she got the cat that she was trying to breed. And they even said something about this sort of selection, blah blah blah, and I was like, yes, it is selection. It's artificial selection in order to produce this particular new breed. And in evolution, basically all it's saying is that you have the same sort of selection that occurs in nature. It's just not driven by somebody who wants to make a pretty cat. It's driven by other forces that put pressure on populations to survive. But there is selection pressure, whether it's natural selection that's involved in the evolution of a group of animals, or whether it's artificial selection applied by a cat breeder.
Okay. So, well, he's not going to answer because he's off the phone now. But
I hope that helps.
Thanks for calling. Hope that helps. And go read up. A lot of Richard Dawkins' books are really good. So, anyway, Paul in Tel Aviv, Israel. Are you
Hello.
There?
Hey.
Hi, Russell. Hi, Tracy. How are you?
Hi. You're calling from a long way off?
Yeah.
I am calling from a long way off.
What's on your mind today?
Well, to begin with, as always happens, I start off with one idea and then I listen to your first caller and I have to comment upon a few things.
Hear that, Mark? You're changing people's ideas already.
I wouldn't go that far.
Go on.
Go for it.
Well, just to begin with, it's my guess that his church are probably very much in favor of promoting intelligent design. And one of the
No, intelligent design is the weasel for people who don't want to mention God.
Yeah, he'd be
his
straight
church
up
would go all in
creationism.
creationism.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, he wouldn't beat about the bush, would he?
No.
Well, I suppose one of the mantras just occurred to me, though, is that they always talk about the fact that we should expose the kids to all the information and let them make up their minds.
Yeah, that's the intelligent design people. And they don't mean it. They just are trying to get a foothold in the school system so that they can get back to outlawing evolution the way it should be.
Yeah, well, fortunately, we know that they're not fooling anybody.
Right. Well, they're fooling
They
the House of Representatives in Tennessee, apparently.
So anyway, what's on your mind?
But
Oh, okay. Well, beyond that, I actually called a few weeks ago, and it occurred to me that as long as I'm calling all the way from Israel, I might as well give you a little bit of insight of the religious doctrines and the lack of separation of church and state that we have over here. There exists in Israel the Israeli rabbinate of Israel, and there's a lot of things that you simply cannot do in a secular way in this country, namely marriage and burial and divorce. They have jurisdiction over all those things. I got married, I left the country in order to get officially married in Cyprus, and only in that way could I come back and be legally married without doing it through the chief rabbinate.
are you originally from Israel? Because you don't have the kind of accent I expect.
I was born in New York. I came here when I was 9.
Ah, got it. Your parents, were they like Orthodox or something?
Oh, no. But I did grow up in a conservative household,
Okay.
conservative Judaism, and that's what I was brought up with. And somewhere along the line, I suppose, with Richard Dawkins' God delusion at the very beginning, he speaks about the fact that he's not trying or doubts that he's going to convert anybody other than those who are either sitting on the fence or realize that they haven't really given it a lot of thought. And he was pretty much talking to me.
Okay. So he
anyhow, I
converted
didn't
you,
really
yeah.
so much have a question, but it's very strange living in such an advanced country technologically. You know, you may or may not be aware of Israel's place in the world as far as, you know, just being pretty much the only so-called democracy in the Middle East. And yet, as far as separation of church and state go, or synagogue and state, however you want to put it, you know, you don't have any public transportation on the Sabbath here, except in a very few specific places.
Yeah.
If you want to have a restaurant with a kosher certificate, it only goes through the rabbinate. And even if you're completely kosher, you won't get your certificate if you're open on the Sabbath.
So would it be fair to describe it as a theocracy? I mean, there are a lot of mitigating factors to that, I imagine.
You know what? I have no idea.
Okay. Let me ask you this, because I'm always going around saying that there are more atheists in Israel. I mean, like, there are way more Jewish atheists in Israel than atheists here in the United States. Would that be a fair statement?
Again, it's very difficult because I think you'll discover that most people, even if they're secular, I don't think they would define themselves as atheists.
Okay.
Is there any public concern about the idea that you can't have a secular marriage? Like, is that even a topic of discussion or debate?
It is, and it's actually most prevalent among the conservative Jews, actually, because a lot of them would actually like to have him be married through a conservative rabbi. But if he's not Orthodox, it's not going to fly.
Wait, so you're saying you can't have a wedding in your own denomination?
I think that's what he's saying.
Pretty much.
Wow, I didn't know
If you
that.
want to officially be married, it has to go through the chief rabbinate.
That sucks.
Those are Orthodox rabbis, and if you don't do everything by the book as far as they're concerned, it doesn't hold water.
Let me ask you a question. Let's suppose that you decided, like, as a protest, you're not going to get married, but you're just going to have family life. You're going to move in with your girlfriend, have kids, do the normal thing. Would there be Like what would be the
Blowback.
difference? Well, I'm not talking about would there be morality police, but like what would be the benefits to having your rabbinical marriage versus not?
Well, it's not
Legal.
so much the having a rabbinical marriage. It's just the fact that you would be officially married and you would reap the benefits that come along with that. All tax breaks.
Okay, so like here, kind of.
Yeah, I mean,
Exactly,
it's the
just like
same
there.
issues with
Okay.
gay marriage here.
Right.
People ask, why do gays want to get
Yeah.
married? And it's like, you get a bunch of benefits from that.
Right. But it sounds like,
Precisely.
yeah, it does sound like while it's discriminatory, there's not any sort of, nobody would stop you from just moving in with someone and starting a family and saying, we're just not going to get married. That would be fine, I'm assuming.
Yeah, that would be fine.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. So it's
It
kind of...
might be frowned upon in some circles, but
Yeah, I
It's
understand.
kind of progressive, but there's this weird legal
Throwback.
elephant in the room, sort of.
It's very weird. Yeah, I agree.
It is. It's probably the most culturally diverse country in the world. You've got,
You
know...
said funerals too, though, right?
I'm sorry?
You said funerals.
Oh, yes.
Okay, now, so wait, so somebody dies, you don't want to have the rabbinical funeral, so what happens to what do you do?
I don't know. I haven't been there.
Do you just leave the body out in the street? Or, I mean, can you bury somebody and not have a funeral, I suppose?
I never even thought about it because I haven't been in that situation.
Okay.
And
Unlike
since it
marriage.
doesn't really carry, I think it doesn't, it's not that big of an issue because they kind of take care of everything and you do it through them, and I don't think it matters too much to people, even who are secular, that they do it that way.
Okay.
They just want it taken care of. But to be honest, I haven't given that specific issue much thought.
I just wonder what would happen if someone said, no, I'm not going to have a rabbinical funeral. Would you just forego the funeral and they would still bury the body? Or, I don't know, it's just interesting.
You know, it shouldn't be too hard to look up.
And what else did you say? You said funerals and weddings, and there was one other thing?
Oh, just the laws of the kosher laws, or what we call kashrut.
So
Yeah.
is everything kosher, or?
Oh, no, but it's come a long way. I mean, when I came here about 30 years ago...
Could you get a
wanted
bacon cheeseburger there if you went looking for it?
You'd have to look pretty hard. For the most part,
That's not Tracie Harris.
They labeled you as Russell a minute ago.
I'll tell you something, actually, because I don't know how long, maybe 15 years ago, something like that. There are actually, I think, 2 pig farms in the entire country, and they were only allowed if the pigs are on some kind of platform or stage, so they never actually touch the ground.
Wow.
I kid you not.
What is the thing with pigs, too? There is Abrahamic
They're-
religions and pigs.
They're unclean.
Wow.
or
But it's
something.
like, somehow the
Bible says
Muslims,
that.
woo, no pigs, and
Well, Muslims is an offshoot of
right,
of
but
both
Christians
of those.
eat pigs?
Well,
does that work?
they're mavericks. I don't know.
I mean, Jesus wouldn't have eaten a pig.
Just as much of the loss as you are. What?
It seems like Jesus would not have eaten a pig since he was Jewish.
I mean, my take on the kosher laws is basically that, like, they didn't have, sufficient technology or medical technology to understand that you have to cook a pig really thoroughly in order to get the, horrible diseases out of them.
I've heard that, but I wonder, because they ate a lot of other animals. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
There's some
but
weird, you can eat this, you can't eat that,
I mean,
that I'm not sure I buy it.
I mean, this is just my understanding. So then they said, "Oh, God said you shouldn't do that
Yeah.
ever," and then it just became a rule, and
Yeah.
then it stayed a rule even after technology marched on.
Because like cattle has parasites too and stuff. It's I don't know. I just seems so
I don't know.
strange to me.
I think it's less risky.
yeah.
Maybe it's the Pulp Fiction
Maybe.
philosophy.
I don't know.
Maybe.
All right. Well,
Okay.
that's an interesting
Very
call.
enlightening. Thanks, Paul.
Yeah. Thank you.
Always a pleasure.
All right.
Okay.
Oops.
Sorry,
Bye.
didn't mean to cut you off, but bye. I want to go to, we got like 5 minutes left in the show, so I'm sorry. Some people have been hanging on a very long time and they're just not going to get on. But I think I'm going to go with Nix in Sao Paulo, Brazil. I'm sorry for the way I just said your city's name. Are you there, Nix?
Hi.
Hi. Pronounce your city for me. I'm terrible at this.
Sao Paulo.
Sao Paulo.
Yeah, one of the largest cities in South America.
Okay.
Okay, but anyway, What I'd like to ask you guys, I'm a pretty big fan of the show. I'm an atheist myself. And what I'd like to ask you guys is about spiritualism. It's the third major religion here in Brazil, and there is a very famous medium here called Chico Xavier, and he's pretty famous, and they made about 2 or 3 motion pictures about his works. He has more than 450 books published, supposedly by the, reading by the mediums that was reading by, automatic writing stuff. They have like thousands of letters that were published. Some of those letters were verified with, the letters match to the deceased people, and it's pretty hard to debunk this kind of people because basically this medium died in 2002, and you can see a myth unfolding into your eyes. So the basic question is how you debunk a myth like this, even it's getting growing big and big and big,
Sure.
and it's very hard to debunk.
Well, my policy is that you can't argue with the dead guy, at least not face to face.
Right.
And I mean, similarly, you can't argue with a guy on YouTube who's already produced a video and he's done with it, which is why I'd never watch stuff that people send to me. So just remember the main question of the show, which is what do you believe and why do you believe it? Because the question is not whether, what Chico Xavier believed, but what the guy you're talking to thinks. And there is probably a lot of nonsense that they can't defend if you just question them on it, if you look for details. And I see here on Wikipedia that he's known for something called spiritism. So, I mean, my first step would be to go to skepticsdictionary.com or skeptic.com and look up spiritism and see what the heck that's all about. There's probably stuff out there that's debunked it, and if there isn't, then you should look into it and maybe you can be the first.
Is there a rebuttal on the page?
On Wikipedia?
Yeah,
No, they're supposed
sometimes
to say
they have
neutral.
critical.
I mean,
Well, sometimes they have critical responses. I don't know.
it's a
but
very short
it is
article.
a short
They
article.
apparently don't care
The other
about
problem
it
with
very
things
much.
like this, it reminds me kind of Nostradamus. I
Yeah.
mean, when you have people that believe that,
Another
there's
dead
just
guy.
it's all interpretive. You see things that are subjective, and they're just simply going to see what they want to see. And when they hear a reference to something, they're going to attach it to something meaningful. And it's very hard to stop people from doing that.
Oh, shoot, we're out of time, aren't we?
Okay.
I'm sorry. Thank you for calling, and sorry to the people who were left hanging on the line, but, that's our wonderful crew. We love them so much.
Right there,
Yeah, I
right
would send
there.
out love rings if I could, but, thank you, Tracie, for being on the show.
Always a pleasure.
Always, yes. Thank you, Mark. And goodbye, everyone. Oh, I forgot to plug the restaurant again.
Oh, well. It was kind of a short. Well, I guess we're still on.
Okay.
Are we doing after show?